Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mythic Gazetteer. I am joined here by a good friend of mine, Jeremy Lilly, and we are playing a game today written by the inestimable Jim McClure. This game is called Reflections. It's a game about dueling samurai, and we are going to face each other on a field of battle. But before we do that, we're going to play out the long and tragic history of our relationship together. Only one of us will remain standing by the end. So before we get too started, I'll throw some plugs out here. So the Mythic Gazetteer is part of the Nerds International Network, and it's starting to grow quite a bit. We've got some podcasts, we've got some blogs, a lot of stuff to check out. The Wild Die podcast is a particularly good example of what they do. The Tabletop Twats are another great example of some nerds over on the internets. The main homepage for Nerds International is on Google+. That's Nerds-International, so check it out for all of the gaming goodness you can stomach. And then if you want to check out my stuff, please head over to our website, mythicgazetteer.com. You can see the spelling for Mythic Gazetteer right at the very bottom of this screen. We're also on Facebook and Google+, and Twitter, and that's it. So if you're not on one of those, tough luck. Jeremy, welcome to the game, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, hey, everybody. My name is Jeremy Lilly. I do have a YouTube channel where I have a lot of live plays and things of that nature. As of right now, that's pretty much all that's on there. It is called the Erasmus Expeditions. Once again, you can find that written down at the bottom of my screen. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to be here. I've gamed with Eli on a number of occasions. And this is going to be really interesting. I've never tried this system out, but it sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm ready to spill his guts.
Well, we'll see about that, I suppose. But so let's just go ahead and jump into this. So the game starts off with its own little koan that you can decipher if you want, but I thought it would be fun to start off with an actual samurai death poem from the 16th century. This is from a man whose name is Ouchi Yoshitaka. Both the victor and the vanquished are but drops of dew, but bolts of lightning. Thus should we view the world. Now, this game is pretty ritualistic, according to the instructions in the book. It follows a regular format, and there is a lot of repetition in what we say for the purposes of helping us to get into character. It will play out over the course of 5 scenes, and officially it doesn't have a GM, but I'm kind of facilitating the game because I'm a little more familiar with it than Jeremy, and I promise I won't use that to my advantage. Now, it starts off with a series of phrases. This will be a little choppy at the beginning, but it will be repeated and much smoother at the end. So what happens is that Jeremy and I will go back and forth, and we will help to build the world of our story with the help of these 6 declarations, 3 of which I will say and 3 of which Jeremy will say. And so, Jeremy, you've got your character sheet up in front of you, so you know what the format of these things is. I'll go ahead and get started. And like I figure I need a little bit of time to figure out exactly what I want to say for each of these, so I don't think we need to hold ourselves to especially smooth delivery in this beginning part. So let's see here. I have the first phrase. It was a time of blank. And I think it was a time of boiling descent, we'll say. And that's descent like ruptures in a body, not descending into the ground. All right, and then Jeremy, you have the next one.
Let's see. Okay, so the phrase that I have is "we stand upon blank." I'm not sure if this is referencing a physical location or if it's more abstract.
From what I understand, this is our field of battle that you're describing right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. So we stand upon The edge of a shallow pool.
Ah, okay. The edge of a shallow pool. I like it. I'm writing this down for my own benefit because we will be
Oh yeah.
repeating this later. This is a verse that we trade back and forth. So the next phrase, I remember when you were blank. So what do I remember about my hated enemy? I remember when you were closer than my brother.
Excellent. I like it. And the one that I have next is this feud started when. Let's see. This feud started when you killed my father.
Oh, man. Oh, boy. Okay. That is some shit right there.
I mean, you might as well go complex, right?
Yeah, right. By the way, this show is explicit. You've been warned. So there you go. Okay. So at this point, we introduce ourselves, and this phrase is something that is almost identical for both of us. My name is blank. I am a blank, and I cannot allow your actions to go unchallenged. So it's a chance to give your name and the most basic essence of your character. And I did in advance a little. So here we go. My name is Takeda Kujuro. I am the one who shouldered the burden of your sins, and I cannot allow your actions to go unchallenged.
Well, that blank on the page is just a little too small to write all that down. So I'm going to trust that you remember that.
Yeah, I'll remember it for sure.
Okay, let me see. My name is blank, and I am a blank. I cannot allow your actions to go unchallenged. Okay. Okay. My name is Hatsumoto Nariyoshi. I am a dishonored son, and I cannot allow your actions to go unchallenged.
Boy, oh boy. Okay. So we've got quite a situation together, even right out the gate here. Now, there are 5 scenes that we play through. Each scene is going to tease out details about our past. And the way each scene will go, we read the name of the scene, and then the person who read the name of the scene gets to set the scene a little bit, give, a paragraph or 2 of description about where we are, what we're doing, and that sort of thing. But each of us has to choose an objective that we have set to try and accomplish in the other character. Whichever objective we choose, we keep it a secret. And then at the end of the scene, we discuss the objectives we chose. And I get to decide if I fulfilled my objective. You get to decide if you fulfilled your objective. And if we fulfilled it, then we get a certain number of dice that we add to a dice pool for our final duel at the end of the game. So this first scene is the time we were friends.
Yeah, real quick. As far as the objectives go, do we choose from a list or do we just create one?
Yeah, well, the character sheet has a few suggestions for objectives, and I'm probably just going to choose from one of those. But one of them is choose your own objective. And each one of these has a different dice value that you can earn. So for example, if you choose your own objective to accomplish in the scene, the best you can get is 1 die added to your pool in this round. However, if you get your rival to agree to do something for you in the future, you get 2 dice. If you get your rival to give you a personal item, if you get your rival to reveal their greatest personal weakness, then you get 4 dice. And rules, you pick one in advance. It's not like you're just going willy-nilly into the scene and you try to accomplish any one of these. You have a specific goal that you as a player are trying to get the other character to do. So let's take a moment here and decide which goals or objectives we want to pursue in this round. Let me know when you've got yours picked out.
I'm ready.
Okay. Let's see. All right. I think I am ready too. So, at this point, we set the scene. It was the time we were friends. And I'm going to say that this scene takes place in the dojo owned by your family. Your uncle is the master swordsman of this place. And you are a student because everyone in your family is. I am a student there also because my family, the Takeda family, we are up and coming in the world. And we're hungry, we got a lot of gumption. And it's going to be an autumn afternoon. And it's a time when students can free spar. And you and I are squared off with each other, dueling with wooden bokken. So I look at you and I say, Nariyoshi, your technique gets better every day, but I don't know that it's good enough to defeat me here and now.
You assume much familiarity on my family's grounds, Takeda.
Well, we shall see. I must assume a certain familiarity if I am to rise to the ranks and become the greatest samurai in Japan. Now,
The greatest samurai in Japan. Yes, come, show me, samurai. Show me what you are made of.
So I step forward with total confidence. My hakama pants are swishing across the tatami mats on the floor, and I start raining blows down upon you. I do a quick sally and drive you back a little bit. And
I think, as of now at least, that this is early in our friendship.
mm-hmm.
So I'm unfamiliar with your level of skill. And as of now, I'm kind of using this time to measure you, to see where your skill is. And I kind of just simply parry back and forth and kind of step just to kind of see how aggressive you are, which side you favor, things of that nature. Getting a bearing for your level of as a swordsman.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so then I throw a few blows at you, and as soon as I realize that you're not attacking me back, I immediately move as if to strike again, and that maybe creates a little bit of distance. But then I step backward and I go into a guard, and I say, "You won't figure out my pattern that easily."
And about that time, I decide that it's time to show you that sometimes the newness, sometimes the unfamiliarity is dangerous. As you have stepped back onto one of the sasami mats that are loose, I simply use my lead foot out in front of me and give it a prompt tug towards me as it shifts under your feet.
Okay, yeah, then I definitely lose a little bit of footing and I falter for just a moment.
And that's when I press the advantage.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to say I'm actually driven down to my knees at this point, and I'm on one knee and I can't move backward, but I'm still managing to fend off these blows. And then, so I started the scene, but either one of us can add whatever elements we would like. The only thing we can't do is presume the other person's actions, right? And so at this point, I'm on my knees, and I come up and I block one of your blows, and we're holding right here where the boken is right in front of my face. When all of a sudden there's a whistling in the air, and a shuriken plants itself in my boken, and it almost hits me in the face. But I'm like, oh, ninjas! And immediately I throw your boken up into another guard position, and I roll out of the way, and I start looking up at the rooftops around this dojo.
And immediately I yell, "Attack! We are under attack!" And I likewise am looking for the nearest possible threat. And at this point, only being armed with the wooden practice sword, I have changed my grip on it a bit, and it is no longer a hold of practice. It's one that, if I have to, I will kill someone with this sword, with this wooden practice sword. It's
Cool.
more of a bludgeoning weapon at this point now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see this happen, and I notice that you are not going for a normal sword, and I decide to do the same. I stick with my wooden boken, but I too adjust my grip, actually, and I adjust my stance too, to where it's a little bit more ready. But up on the rooftop in front of both of us, a couple of ninjas run across the roof and throw some more shurikens down at the ground. And then I step forward to kind of, actually, no. I turn around so that we're facing in opposite directions, and I'm guarding from the other direction. But from the side, in a position that neither one of us are ready to guard against, there's a ninja who leaps off the roof, rolls onto the ground, and comes up within feet of you to jab with his ninjato right at your side. How do you react?
I actually don't see it at all. I'm actually focusing on another ninja who is wielding a short Yumi bow, not that far away, in kind of the reeds next to some of the water features here on the school grounds. I'm kind of anticipating him to be taking a shot at us, and kind of readying my bookend to try to see if I can't deflect or catch the arrow, so I don't even see this guy coming up against me.
Okay, so then are you going to allow this guy to strike you? Another one of the rules that we're playing by is that any amount of time can pass between these scenes. So any injury you suffer won't kill you. And in fact, one of the rules is that neither one of us can die until the very end. So we have plot armor right now.
Yeah, I was thinking either he could go ahead and strike me, or this could be the moment that you might prevent it and start the strong forging of our friendship.
Yeah, okay. Here's what I'm going to say. This guy comes up to strike at you, right? And his aim is not quite true. And so instead of actually shoving his sword hilt deep up into your torso, he actually just slashes across the back. And it maybe cuts your skin or something, but for the most part, it just cuts open the back of your gi top, right? And as soon as this happens, I feel the blade also get entangled with my shirt, and I look over and I see him, and I immediately turn and just kick him right in the face so that he goes tumbling backwards. And I raise up my sword and I run after him. Yeah, but I think as I'm advancing toward him, there is another ninja who's jumped down at this point. So we've got 4 ninjas in play. There are 5, I guess. There are a couple on the roof, there are 2 on the floor, and then there's one over in the reeds with the bow that you described, right? And so I'm running after this guy who's on the ground, but there's another ninja who's coming up behind me.
And I rush forward, coming up behind this individual who's closing with you that you haven't seen yet. And as I get closer, I call out your name, Kujiro, using your first name. And uh, more as a distraction to see if the ninja behind you reacts. And he does, and he turns, faltering in his pursuit of you for just a moment, and spinning around just as I clock him across the face with this wooden sword. And he kind of
Nice. Okay.
spins down to the ground, unconscious, probably dead.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So he hits the ground hard. Um, and then I come up, and this ninja in front of me, he actually throws down a smoke bomb, and I and we're both kind of enveloped in the smoke a little bit. But I'm running forward, and I have to stop for a moment. And then when the smoke clears, he's gone. But there are still the two ninjas up on the rooftop, and they throw some shurikens down. And so I actually notice that they're coming for you, and your back is turned. And I jump in between and slash down with my bokken as quick as I can. And I manage to catch two of these shuriken as they come down. But yeah, if one of them hits you, you're free to say that for yourself.
Yeah, I think the shurikens actually are taken care of. However, having turned my attention away from the bow wielder and the reeds proves to be perhaps foolhardy, as he looses an arrow, and that actually sinks itself into my thigh.
Oh, shoot. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so this sinks into your thigh, and you react to it. And I turn around because I hear this grunt of pain coming from you or something, right? Some sort of audible sound. And I turn around and I see that the ninja who disappeared earlier, who's got this mark on his face from where I kicked him, he is coming up right behind you. And this time he's got a kusarigama, right? And he is he's like rearing back to throw it. He's actually like swinging it over his head, right? And just before he throws it, I actually run and I dive past you. And I fly probably, 8 feet across this tatami mat, roll, and come up and like bash him right across the shins so that he is standing up and he falls forward onto his face, and Kusari goes wild. And I say, Hatsumoto, you must watch your back.
And he doesn't really have much of a response as of now, because the edges of his vision are only just now kind of returning from white, from the searing pain of this arrow kind of buried into his thigh. He just kind of, hey, and kind of whirls around just in time to see that the two on the roof who have run out of shurikens have now jumped down to join the more immediate fray. And one of them is coming up, closing with each of us. But the one that is coming up to close with me makes the same mistake that you made earlier in the sparring match and steps onto that loose sasami mat, which I then reach down, since I'm kind of favoring the leg anyways. I simply just reach down and clutch in my hand and just yank out from underneath his legs.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so let's see. You knock him out from underneath you, and at this point, I am free long enough. I look over and I actually see that one of the others, or a couple of the other students, have actually chased off the ninja with the bow because we were practicing in front of a group of people, right? And so really, it's just us and these two ninjas left at this point. And I come up to you and I put my hand on your shoulder and I say, "Can you fight?"
I can fight. I should
Let us
stop the
fight.
bleeding.
Leave the arrow in. We'll deal with it later. For now,
Aye.
let us raise blades together.
He actually swings the bookend down and actually just kind of snaps the arrow off, just an inch or so outside of the wound.
Very nice. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to then help you to your feet, and together we're taking a defensive, or I'm taking a defensive stance anyway, as these two ninja kind of recover. One of them recovers from falling. And I'm going to say they run after us. And it's the same as it was at the very beginning of the scene, where they lay into us with strikes and parries, and our bokken are managing to fend them off. At least mine is. But every time there's a chunk, 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 and you can see there are obvious notches being put into the bokken here. They'll only last for so long.
One of the blows from the man that is pressing the advantage on me actually severs the wooden practice sword, but it severs it at a jagged angle.
Mm.
And he seems very satisfied with himself after he does this. And he makes a kind of a lunging parry, and I actually duck and roll towards that injured leg. And I come up beside him, behind him, and I drive the jagged point of this wooden bookhand up through his rib cage from the side.
Nice. Very nice. Okay, so he screams out in pain, and he falls down to his knees. But whenever you had to roll to avoid this strike of his, it put you in between the two ninja. And so I see this happening, and I go, no! And I spin around, and I manage to get right at your back, and I parry one of these ninjas' blows, and I smack him across the face with this bokken of mine, right? And the force of smacking him with the bokken actually breaks the tip off of it. So he falls backwards onto his back, and then this other ninja that you've just stabbed is behind me, and I turn around my blade and stab him with it too. It like goes right over your shoulder and into his back, a few inches above where your own blade went in there. And I pull it back out and I say, have you taken care of him yet?
Just. And he kind of pulls the broken wooden sword back out of him and uses it almost like a cane to kind of press against the ground and ease himself back into a standing position, favoring that leg clearly.
Very nice. Okay, so then let's see here. I will advance then on this guy that I just broke the bokken off, and I'm turning the bokken. I'm going to cast the bokken aside, and he comes up and he tries to strike at me with his ninja sword, but it's a wild shot because he's really delirious from this blow that I just gave him. So I managed to grab it, and then I throw him onto the ground and break his arm. And then I kick him in the back so that he's the worse for wear. And I think he's really the last ninja with any fight in him. And I think I just took it out. So at this point, there's a calm that settles. And all the students kind of, yeah, we did it, blah, blah, blah. They say something like, Hatsumoto Dojo for the win.
And I think Nariyoshi might even kind of take a step in the direction. One of the other students kind of comes up to finish this downed ninja off.
Mm-hmm.
And Nariyoshi kind of steps forward and says, no, stop! We must leave one alive for questioning. And just about the time that he kind of says that, the adrenaline kind of wanes. And he staggers and then collapses onto the ground.
Okay, before he can collapse, actually, Kujiro, he runs in and grabs him and holds him up, and he's like, a warrior should never fall in the field of battle unless he does not mean to rise again. I am here for you.
He kind of nods, says, yes, you're right. I will try to stand. If not under my own power, then perhaps with your help. At least
yes. And Nariyoshi-san, I hope that one day in the future, you might do the same for me if I should have need.
We shall see, if that day comes.
Yes, if that day comes. But I can count on you if it does.
He extends a hand as to see if he can give you his vow to exchange a promise with you.
Nice. Okay, yeah, I imagine like the forearm clasp, that manly thing. All right, so then the scene ends organically, and we get to decide when that ends. It can either be when the action of the scene is over or when one of us chooses to leave the scene. But I've got you by the arm. We've just given this clasp. And I'm going to say, and now, Nariyoshi, let us tend to that arrow in your thigh. and I'll leave it to you if you have anything you want to say.
No, I think that's actually a good place to end it. It feels
Okay,
like a good spot to wrap it, I think.
very nice. Sounds good. So that's the end of the scene, and at this point, we both reveal our objectives to each other.
I think I know
Um,
yours.
Mine was to get your rival to agree to do something for you in the future.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And so I
Um,
think I get.
yes, I would definitely agree to that. Um,
Okay.
however, I failed to achieve mine. To get
Ah.
your rival to give you a personal item.
Ah, okay. Yeah, yeah. So then you would not get the 3 dice that you were shooting for. However, you can get 2 hatred dice if you want to add to that pool. Actually, I don't even know that there's an option. I think you just get them, and you can decide later on if you want to use them.
Okay.
Let's see here. When a scene ends, scoring a scene. If you successfully complete your objective, receive a number of dice as indicated. If you did not achieve your objective, you receive a number of hatred dice equal to the number of dice the other player received. Yeah. So you definitely get hatred dice whether or not you want them. And you can decide later if you're actually going to use them.
I see.
Cool. All right, then. Well, that was the time we were friends. And this is the time you crossed the line. So I will allow you to set the scene here. It's a good idea to mention how much time has passed, but otherwise, you're free to describe whatever you want. And if you'd like, I can give you a prompt about or a basic of what the book says this scene is
Yeah.
all about.
I don't know that it would need one.
Sure.
Let's see. The time you crossed the line. Okay. I think that this is probably afterwards, but not long afterwards. A week, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we are still celebrating the victory that we had. No, you know what? Let's actually push it out further. We'll say it's some months later, like 8 or 9 months later.
Mm-hmm.
It's winter, and you said that it was autumn before.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's push that out even further. Then let's do like a year and 3 months.
Okay.
So it's not the winter right after, but the one following.
Cool.
And we discovered the plot of these ninja, that they were hired by a rival lord who was jealous of the propriety and the prestige that the Hatsumoto school was obtaining,
Mm-hmm.
and hired them to get rid of us. And after discovering that plot, we actually banded together with a few other groups that also had a problem with the same lord, and actually went and sacked his castle and killed him. And so this scene is going to take place during the celebrations that follow from that battle. And I think that there has probably been a lot of sake that has been
Mm-hmm.
drunk in celebration. And I don't know, should I disclose kind of what I think you do to cross the line in the scene, or
No, that's something that,
we discover?
well, I suppose, well, I think that violates the law of like, you can't dictate my actions, right?
Very true.
Um, so I'm trying to think of a way we can make this happen. It says circumstance might have put you on opposite sides of an issue, or an ideological difference may have you in a disagreement. No matter the source, someone crossed the line and threw a stone into the smooth pond of our relationship. Um, It says it is best to set this scene in some kind of external conflict or a situation where only one side can possibly get what they want. So maybe we're discussing the actions of what happened during that battle. And there's some reason why we disagree with each other.
Well, what I was kind of thinking was that that there have been rumors, at least, of you possibly pursuing my sister.
Oh, okay. I'll go along with that for sure.
And because we've been drinking, I decide that this is kind of a good opportunity to bring this up, whether or not it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of my thinking.
Okay. Yeah, I think that works really well. So we know this is a post-battle celebration. There's sake. I like your sister.
Allegedly.
Yeah. And let's see. All right. So is there any other scene setting you would like? And you can open the scene as well.
No, I don't think there's going to be anything else as far as establishing. I'm going to choose my objective here, and then I'll start narrating what we got
Okay.
going on.
Okay. And I've got my objective ready to go. So just let me know when you're ready.
Okay, so the city where our dojo is kind of situated near the outskirts of is kind of where the celebration is taking place. It was kind of the launching grounds for this invasion against this rival lord, and the tea houses have not really closed properly since it's happened, and it's been a number of days, probably almost going on a week since the victory, and it hasn't really shown very much sign of slowing down yet. And I think it's a very crowded place at the moment, and there's a lot of very drunk samurai that are scattered about this tea house. And I think we find Kujuro and Nariyoshi sitting in a corner at a low table where they're on the floor, and there's several empty cups kind of laid out on the table. And I even think that there's probably an unconscious man kind of leaned forward on the table, kind of gently snoring as you and I are kind of just finishing up the end of a song.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of finish the last part of the song, and Nariyoshi kind of drains the last of his sake cup, and kind of sets it down and reaches over to refill, and realizes that the jug is empty, and he kind of shouts, "Sake! Sake! Bring more sake!"
Yes. A nice battle cry. Reminds me of the battle we just finished. And hey, wonderful, my friend. Not a single arrow in your thigh this time.
You will never let me live that down.
Nope, never. I'll drink to that. And then I go to drink it. I'm like, oh, it's empty. Sake! Sake!
Sake!
Sake.
You know, today was a good day. Today was a good day because I did nothing today.
Nothing. Well, we have just returned from battle. I suppose walking is nothing?
That was a week ago now. Your days have
Oh,
blurred together,
how
Kujiro.
much have I been drinking? Ah, you remember how many cups has it been this time? I see four, or is that two in front of me?
That brings up a good point, you know.
What? Tell me, friend.
I have heard many rumors. Kujuro, you have eyes for my sister.
For Sakura. My friend, as on the battlefield, your eyesight is most keen. Mine is in trouble, for I see over there, upon the dais with your father, two twin beauties, not just one. Can it be? You have had two sisters and didn't tell me?
It would be twice the trouble for you, Kujuro. No.
For me? Trouble for your father, I think.
Perhaps, yes. You know, my father is a stubborn man. He
Stubborn. Well,
he wishes for our family to climb, climb higher, to achieve. His daughter is his key to doing so.
you say at this point, Kujiro's face kind of falls, and he says, "You are speaking of my family, in speaking of your own. I know I am not high-born, but look at my skill. Surely I will rise through the ranks. Surely, even now, I am worthy of more than just dismissal on the subject of your sister."
If it was up to me, yes, that is true. It is not up to me to determine who Sakara must marry, you see. It is up to my father. And there's a mild, not disdain's too strong of a word, but a mild disappointment that it's not up to him.
Ah, okay, yeah. Kujiro definitely notices this, and he says, Nariyoshi, my friend, tell me, if it was up to you, would you give your sister's hand to me?
Yes, Kujiro, you are a good man. Your family is earning a name for itself, and you do that Akira family much honor, especially in the battle. And at that point, a new jug of sake has arrived, and he immediately pours and offers a toast once again to the victory that has recently transpired.
Yes, yes, battle brother, brother of spear and sword and bow. I drink to you this night, Nariyoshi, Hatsumoru Nariyoshi, and to all of your family, even your
To you, Kujiro of the Takeda, even though
father.
you
Here's
were
to
not
that.
born my brother, you are my brother.
Yes, and you are mine, Nariyoshi. Now, we must drink. Throw it back, put the cup down. Ah! Oh, oh, oh.
At that point,
Hot sake.
a another drunken man stumbles past, and he is speaking openly to himself. And he says, that Sakara will be mine. She will be mine, or she will be no man's. And he kind of stumbles towards her.
Oh, he stumbles towards her. I watch this happening, and I watch him getting closer and closer. And I know that there's a crowd between the two of them, and I know that her father is an even bigger obstacle than this crowd. But I look, and by the time he gets about 15 feet away from me, I slap my hand on my thigh, and I say, "It will not be born." And I stand up and I go, "Goro, you old sop, turn around."
Kind of staggers a couple of steps further before he realizes that he's being addressed. And he kind of wheels around. I imagine this guy's kind of a bigger dude. He kind of wheels around, stepping on somebody before he's able to find his balance and right himself. And he kind of narrows his eyes towards you, squinting, trying to see who exactly it is. He said, "You, Takeda."
Ah, yes, it is me. I see your eyes are even worse than they were last time. Perhaps if they had been better, you would have killed more ninja a week ago.
You are a runt. You know nothing about killing. I was killing whenever you were still wallowing in the stables.
Ugh. This sobers him up a little bit. And he looks back at Nariyoshi. Did you hear him? He was killing things when I was in the stables. Well, he was killing, perhaps, but he was only killing chickens and pigs. In his own backyard, the farmhand is worthy of no title, and certainly not worthy of a rare beauty like what is up on the dais today. And I salute Takeda Sakura in front of the entire crowd, who is now, a lot of people are probably watching.
I would say so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Including my father, I think.
Uh-huh. I think so too.
And Goro kind of takes a couple of steps back towards our direction, I think. He says, Farmhand, I will strangle your throat like a chicken.
Ha! Strangle my throat. Why don't you try something serious? And I draw the edge of my blade out of its scabbard. And I say, a duel. Right here on the steps outside this very room. Will you accept my challenge, or will you be a coward?
He kind of reaches down by his side and realizes that his katana is not there. And a friend of his kind of clumsily and drunkenly stumbles forward to hand him his daisho and kind of pushes it into his chest and says, you have nothing to worry about, Goro. I saw him. He only killed 4 men. You have this runt. You can put him in his place, and Sakura will be yours.
Sakura will be mine. I say, whoever wins this duel may kiss Sakura's hand, or may hope to at the very least. And the one who loses this duel will be dead. And then there's a hush that goes over the crowd, because I just suggested a duel to the death with this guy.
and it might win Sakura as a prize, I would imagine.
Well, at least a chance to kiss her hand. And I I think you would notice at this point that I'm really lurching. Like I am not sober. I haven't sounded like it, but standing up, it's really hitting home that I am not sober.
I imagine in this place that perhaps only my father and Sakura are probably, well, maybe the people working are really the only ones that could be described as sober.
Mm-hmm.
And Narayoshi even has kind of gotten to his feet, ready to back you up, should you need it. But as of now, at least, his eyes have mainly been on his father, kind of seeing how he's taking this, what he might say or do in this instance.
Okay. Yeah, and I think the father is probably pretty wrathful right now. I think he's containing it as well as any master would. He's of course not the master of the school, but he's a master swordsman nonetheless. And I'm also going to say that Sakura is blushing right now. She's pretty enamored that at least one of these people is willing to fight for her. And your father, of course, is totally unaware of this. Of her reaction anyway. He's intently focused, are staring daggers at both me and Goro, and I think a few moments go by, and he stands. And as soon as he stands, everybody in assembly stops talking and starts looking at him. And he says, "I did not expect to find so many fools in my brother's dojo. But if there are fools, it must be remedied. So, brother, master of the Takeda dojo, or the Hatsumoto dojo, will you grant permission for these fools to kill each other on our steps and rid us of their foolishness? What do you say?"
And Narayoshi's uncle is a much older man than most might expect. Narayoshi's father and uncle have maybe as much as 15 years or so in difference of age between them. And he is he's an incredibly laconic man. He doesn't say much, except for when the time comes, such as this. He's the kind of man that when he doesn't speak often, but when he does, everybody listens. He usually has something important to say. And as the room's eyes kind of all turn towards him, the master of this school, he says, "There is nothing stopping fools from killing one another. If they choose to die, then they will die one way or another. If they insist on this being the cause of their death, then so be it. It is one fool less that we all must suffer."
All right. So then, yeah, Kujiro and Goro, they go out to these steps, and you said that Nariyoshi was going to act as Kujiro's second?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
follows him out.
So as this is going on, Kujiro is holding his sword in his hand, but he's still really obviously drunk. Like he's really not in shape to be fighting. And he's good. He's a good samurai, but he might not be good enough for this. And he looks at you and he says, "My brother, Nariyoshi, do you have any words of wisdom? Perhaps his weaknesses?"
Yes, Narayoshi says as he's kind of stumbled out behind you, and he kind of pulls out from his back this bucket that he brought with him, and he kind of throws it in Kujiro's face, and it's startlingly cold water.
Mm-hmm.
And just as the kind of shock from this abrupt splash of water kind of hits Kujiro in the face, Narayoshi kind of comes up and kind of smacks both of his cheeks and like takes his face in his own hands, and he says, "He is fat and he is slow. Take out his legs."
His legs? Well, it's better than trying to cut through that stomach. Step aside, brother. It's time for me to kill a man.
Hey.
And then it's time to kiss your sister on her beautiful hand.
We shall see.
So he pats you on the shoulder. And then he says, Goro, you fat old giant ogre. It is time to meet the gods. Ready yourself for death.
And Goro kind of has found his place where he feels he's going to make his stance. And he kind of turns about to face you. And he says, "Very well, rat. Come so that I may put my boot upon you."
Okay. Yeah, so then Kujiro lurches forward and he sends out an early strike, right? But it's way too predictable. And I don't think Goro is quite as drunk as Kujiro is. And so Goro easily parries it and then brings it back immediately. And it's all Kujiro can do to fall on the floor to get out of the way of this blow. And then all of a sudden he's backpedaling like crazy, trying to avoid Goro's advance with his big steps. And he manages to finally swat the guy's sword away and roll backward into a crouch. Very reminiscent of the time when you were friends. And he starts to parry some blows, and then he strikes, just like you said, at Goro's leg, and manages to just barely slash along Goro's thigh. And Goro stumbles back a little bit and looks at his hand. And then Kujiro says, "First blood, ogre." And then he stands up again and they square off.
Yeah, and I imagine that as you were on the ground kind of backing up, he was literally trying to step on you. He was just, he wasn't even taking the sword swipes at you yet. He was just, plodding after you. And then as you have now cut him, he definitely kind of takes a staggering step back and kind of furrows his brow, realizing that maybe you're a little more of a threat than he gave you credit for. And he kind of he brings his katana kind of up into a high guard, mm-hmm. and kind of comes towards you, and at the last moment kind of steps to the side and then brings his sword down and across. But I think he's drunk enough that it just barely misses you. Maybe cutting a hair or two off of your top knot.
Okay, yeah, I just managed to duck out of the way, and my top knot falls down, and it's all unkempt. And yeah, so Kujiro, he backs up and he feels his hair. He says, "You dog, you will not cut one more hair from my head or any other thing from anywhere else." And then he charges at him again with a thrust, and he starts going into this series of blows, but they're both just kind of flailing at this point. It's really like, truly, this is a battle of fools. If anyone from outside the school were here right now, it would be a total embarrassment. And I think your dad and his brother are really kind of seeing that. They're disappointed right now. But then I think Goro starts to get the upper hand on our friend Kujiro. and Goro is advancing, right? And he manages to cut across Kujuro's chest a little bit, right? And it's not enough to really cause lasting damage, but it causes his gi to fall open, and you can see there's a line of red across his chest where there was this little bit of a cut. And Kujuro is enraged, and he says, "I will not stand for this anymore. Time to end it." And he looks back at Nariyoshi and he says, and he winks, right? And he advances as if to attack Goro, and then he grabs his thigh and falls down and says, "Ah, my an arrow, ninjas!" And it's just enough to make Goro turn his head, right? And at that moment, Kujiro lashes out and slashes him right across the stomach. But he wasn't counting on, like, he didn't take it seriously. Goro really does have a lot of padding on his front, right? So this cut really didn't do much to the guy. And Goro turns around and he is furious that he's been tricked by such dishonorable conduct. And he is going to advance with blow after hammer blow. And eventually, Kujuro's arms are getting tired, and he brings his blade up to parry, but he doesn't make it. And I'm going to say Goro actually cuts him right across the face, deep into his eye. And Kujiro falls back to the ground, and he says, and he's just like floundering, trying to clear his vision and find his sword because he's dropped it. And he happens to be, within about 5 feet of Nariyoshi, and Goro is walking up and is about to bring down the killing blow on top of our friend Kujiro.
And Nariyoshi, at this moment, realizes that this is it. That the promise that he made on the day when he and Kujiro fended off the first attack of the ninjas, and he swore that one day he would return the favor. He knows that he shouldn't step in, that this was a duel to the death. But his honor lies more in the promise that he made rather than in the tradition. And he steps forward, and as Goro's blade comes down, there's a ringing, like, ting, like vibration of steel on steel as his blade is met by the blade of Nariyoshi, inches from Kujiro's like clavicle, where his neck meets his body.
Oh man!
And Nariyoshi says, "Enough! You have taken his vision, marred his face. Kujiro is my friend. I have vowed to save his life. I am saving it now. Back down. You have won."
So here's what I think. Goro says, "It is a duel to the death," and he's pissed that not only was he about to kill this guy, but also he's bleeding. Goro is bleeding himself, and his blade has just been stopped by someone so close to the master of this school. And so he says, "Mind your own business," and he elbows at Nariyoshi's face and then backhands at his face too. And he says, "Die, Kujiro!" And he starts to bring the sword down again.
And I think the elbow connects with Nariyoshi, probably breaking his nose.
Oh, shit.
And he staggers back a couple of steps, and Goro turns to deliver the killing blow to Kujiro. And that's when we hear another shh noise, and Goro freezes. And his head falls from his body and tumbles down into the lap of Kujiro.
Oh, man.
And Nariyoshi is standing there as his body falls to the ground, headless. And Nariyoshi is standing there with his katana extended. and his just blood just pouring down the front of his face and his mouth. And he says, "My sister is not a prize for a pig."
Nice. That's awesome. However, your uncle just makes the most authoritative noise. Something like that. And your father stands up and just says, "Dishonor! To our quarters immediately, Narayoshi." And he motioned, he like just, by virtue of standing completely still, he makes it clear to you that you need to get your ass over to him. Meanwhile, your uncle says, Takeda Kujuro, for your ultimate betrayal and your dishonorable conduct, you have won this battle. But forevermore you are without redemption. I cast you forth from this school. Be gone and never return. And Kujuro has to become a Ronin.
Beautiful. I think that's definitely the end of the scene.
Yeah,
unless you
sure.
want to play through the chastisement that Narayoshi goes through.
I'm sure it's legendary.
Perfect.
Yeah. Do you think you also get kicked out of the school, or do you think that's something that can't happen because of your family?
I don't know about can't happen, but I think that my father probably wants it, but my uncle actually says, he actually pulls the, you're just angry because, he's your son, you expected more out of him. But, if in fact he did swear a vow to this man, then, he fulfilled his vow and he can be forgiven a modicum of his transgressions. And I think that he's probably refined to shoveling the stables and grunt work for a while. But I think he's allowed to remain in the school.
Okay. Yeah, so then that happens, and now we discuss our objectives. So what was your objective for me?
My objective was to get you to draw blood from another person.
Ah, mine was the same. So that means we both get 4 dice for this round. How exciting. And neither one of us get hatred dice. So far,
right.
You're the only one with any hatred dice. I think that's deserved. All right, so this third scene, the time you failed me. Now, I'm going to say that this scene takes place 5 years later, and it is springtime. And during this time, I think you and I have both grown into really capable samurai, but our journey has been alone. Whereas before we were inseparable, now we've had to live our own lives. And I guess I'm not a samurai, I'm a Ronin. But still, I managed to find employment that gives me a chance to show off some skills, despite the fact that I don't have an eye. I'm only a one-eyed man. And the trauma of the events that spring or that winter 5 years ago has driven me to smoke a pipe almost all the time. But I'm still finding success in life. And this particular scene takes place in a hidden grotto not far away from your family home. And I'm going to say that you are there because over the years, your sister has never chosen a suitor. And she has rebuffed everyone that your father has presented. And for the past week, your sister has been missing, and you have been frantically searching for her. It's your responsibility because your father at this point, he's taken a turn in his health, and he's no longer well enough to be able to go look for her himself. So what has Nariyoshi been doing in the past 5 years?
Tadayoshi has definitely been the least favorite um, around the school, and his father is, because his health is failing, and Nariyoshi has been kind of tapped with this personal task. Nariyoshi views this as, this is his moment to undo the dishonor that he brought the Hashimoto family and the school. That he thinks that if he succeeds, or at least conducts himself with propriety, that he'll be able to get back into the good graces of his uncle and re-earn his status. So he is taking this mission seriously, not only because it is his sister who's missing, but because of this reason as well.
Okay, cool. All right, so then we need to pick objectives for this round.
I am ready.
Yeah, I think I am ready too. Okay, so you have approached this hidden grotto, right? And I imagine it's right at the edge of a forest and a rice field. And there's this winding section of karst topography and erosion that's turned into this kind of, it's not a super complex labyrinth, but there are a few water cut passages that go back, and there are little areas where you can sit or lay down if you want to or whatever, but they're not big spaces. They're just small little areas where you can hang out. And I'm going to say that you're walking back into one of these, and you see that there is a light up ahead because it's nighttime, but you can see the light of a lantern down the passageway ahead.
So Tadayoshi has kind of come to a stop as he has seen this this lantern light, and he places his hand upon the hilt of his katana at his hip, and just kind of stares ahead. It's springtime, so I would imagine at night it's probably still a little cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine kind of fogging breath, kind of escaping as the moon is kind of shining down, and he's kind of trying to see, either by the lantern light or the moonlight, what this who may be in possession of this lantern. About how far away is it, do you think?
It's probably about 20 feet ahead down one of these narrow water cut passageways. And so I assume you're approaching then.
At the moment, he is frozen. He's stood his ground and is kind of waiting.
Okay.
But if it's that close, he'll call out. Who goes there?
Oh, okay. All right.
Sorry.
No. I think this is better than what I was going to say. So you call out, who goes there? And you hear in response, Nariyoshi, brother?
Takata? And he kind of starts to shuffle forward quickly, taking his hand from his hilt.
Yeah, so you come around the corner, or you peek, or whatever you do, and there is Sakura in this little grotto, but she's joined by two other people. One of these people you know, but you haven't seen in many years. You recognize him from the long scar drawn across his face over one eye. You recognize him for the dead eye underneath that scar. You recognize him as a man who shared battlefields with you, a man who saved your life, and a man whose life you saved. It is Takara Kujuro. And the third figure you recognize as a government official from the village nearby or from the town nearby. And this official, he sided with the school, like his sympathies anyway, were on the side of the rival school that sent these ninjas to attack us. And in the years since, he's been brought to heel, and he's been a diligent servant of the emperor. But he's always been comfortable to, fail to praise the greatness of House Hatsumoto. And he's always been quick to point out the flaws and the dishonorable events that have happened in the family's past. And these three figures are gathered in front of you.
Sakura, where have you been? What is the meaning of this?
So Sakura looks over to Kujiro, and Kujiro looks at her, and you can tell like he has an impulse to reach out his hand, but he doesn't. And he nods, and then he looks at you, and he says, Hatsumoto Nariyoshi, my old friend, it has been a long time.
Aye. A long time. And it is good to see you. But I am confused. Sakura has been missing. And yet I find her here with you. And with Haji. What is the meaning of this?
Nariyoshi, my friend, I can explain. I can explain everything to you. You see, you remember that night 5 years ago when I was expelled from the school and I was never permitted to return? Well, I never returned. At least, not to the school. But, you see, Sakura, she discovered something that night. She discovered the depth of my devotion, and it took a year of private missives delivered by loyal carriers. But my poetry, you see, it won over your sister, just like we had talked that night when you said that if you could, you would give her hand to me. Well, brother, battle brother, you can do that. You can give her hand to me in the presence of this official, and we can be husband and wife, just as we both long to be. Isn't that right, Sakura? And Sakura looks at you, and she's never been one to talk much, but you can tell like she's into this.
Your poetry was always awful. Apparently, so is Sakura's taste in poetry, at least.
Oh, but not in men, I hope.
My father would disagree.
Well, yes, of course, but your father, he is old and stubborn. He always has been. You know, he demanded my head that night when I, through no fault of my own, lost a battle.
My father is dying. He says this with heavy meaning, looking to Sakura.
Oh. She looks down, for sure. And Kujiro says, battle brother, I did not know. But, you see, we cannot wait to be married. We must do this now, before certain secrets become clear.
There is to be a child, then.
Sakura is the one who speaks this time, and she says, my brother, I know she will be beautiful.
You will be quiet, Sakura. The dishonor that you have already brought in our family is crippling. It is good that father has not heard this.
Kujiro says, dishonor? But, battle brother, remember, I love your sister, and your sister loves me. And if things had been different, we would have married 4 years ago. All I needed was a few more chances to prove my skills, and then I could have been your brother in truth, more than just on the battlefield.
Then it would have been proper for you to take Sakura to bed.
But you see, all we need now is for our hands to be joined in marriage, and everything will be okay.
Under this man? Under Haji? Of all the people you could choose. Why him? Why this sniveling dog?
My battle brother, please understand, it was because he was the only one who would listen to us. He is the only one who saw the truth of our love and decided that it was worthy of consummation like this, of becoming official in the eyes of all the gods, even the emperor. You would not deny us this happiness, would you?
I am charged with bringing Sakura back. Sakura, you will come home with me. Now.
She takes a step toward you, and then she stops, and she says, I will not.
The color definitely starts to kind of rise in Nariyoshi's face. He sees that his chance, his opportunity to prove himself is spiraling out of his fingers very rapidly, because even bringing her back is probably going to lead to more dishonor on his family and prevent him his hopeful glory, his return to the good graces of the school and his uncle. And for a moment, he doesn't say anything. And this official, Nariyoshi kind of steps close to him, once again placing his hand on the hilt of his katana. And he says, Haji, you are a man of low standards. You are a man of low moral. I think it is best that you leave now.
Haji seems pretty interested in leaving, and he even starts to like gather up his things and make off. But then Kujiro reaches out and puts a hand on Haji's shoulder, and he says, "You will go nowhere, or I will reveal your secrets." And he says, "You were called here tonight to wed two people who love each other very much. And you will do that, whether with the approval of her family or with their careless, heartless disdain."
Now imagine he kind of is a torn man. On the one hand, he doesn't want to be near a man who is very obviously threatening him.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, a threat of a different matter. And I imagine that there's some kind of officiating documentation, paperwork, or what have you, that is, being filled out or is going to be filled out or what have you, that he may have on hand. And Nariyoshi is staring at Kujiro at this point. Even though they're both kind of addressing Haji. I imagine that their words are addressing Haji, but their faces are looking at one another. And at that point, Nariyoshi kind of turns and sees this officiating paperwork. And he throws it to the ground out of Haji's hands and effectively just like grinds it into the dirt and just like tearing the paper and shattering
Oh
the
no.
clay, container that holds the ink, smashing the brush, just in a fit of like mild rage. It is
Okay.
done.
Um. Yeah, Kujiro. He watches with wide eyes, and he doesn't even think about making a step toward Nariyoshi. But he says, he just whispers, You are closer than my brother. We shed blood together on battlefields all over the province. And now, this is how you repay me? I saved your life when we were both merely students, and this is how you repay me? You told me you would give your sister's hand to me yourself. And this is what it has come to? Hatsumoto? And there's venom when he says your family's name.
He says, you easily forget, Takeda. I saved your life as well. You could have lost more than your eye that night. The night you were too drunk to even stand on your own 2 feet. It was I who lopped the head off of Goro as he pressed his attack against you. I fulfilled my vow to you. I repaid the life debt that you bought. And this is how you repay my family.
Kujiro takes that in. It looks like it's a hammer blow. And he lets it process for a little while. And then he looks at Sakura and he says, every day I find there are less Hatsumotos to love than the day before. At first, I knew it was your father who was not worthy of respect or honor. I knew it because he cared more about birth than about skill. He cared more about traditions than about love. And today, I spit to say it. He spits on the ground. I have found that your father's son, too, is not worthy of respect or of honor. Yes, you saved my life that day. Yes. Only after I had suffered grievous wounds. Look at the wounds I suffered. And he says, you saved my life. You swung your sword. Yes, and since then you've learned to swing your sword, haven't you, Hatsumoto? You've learned to do exactly what your father says, always seeking for his approval. His approval will never come. You are a simpleton not to see it. You are also a simpleton not to see what is between Sakura and I, what cannot be severed. And you are a fool not to bless it.
I have suffered my decision to save your life for 5 years. I have done everything in my power just to stay a part of my family. And when my father dies, Sakura will be the only family that I have left. My uncle is an old man. He will not live long. There is one time that I would have considered Takede Kujiro my brother. You are not Takede Kujiro. You are half the man Takede Kujiro once was. You clearly lost more than your eye that night. You lost your honor.
Man. So Kujiro immediately, do you think? And then Sakura says, brother, please. Nariyoshi, childhood. And you know that Kujiro speaks the truth about father. Father never forgives and never forgets. He is not worth your love or your devotion. This man is. I love him and I want to be with him. And together we have created life. And if you will not bless this, then you are no brother of mine.
Nariyoshi kind of casts his eyes to the ground for a moment and nods solemnly. Then he raises his eyes, and they're kind of welled with emotion. And he says, so be it. You are no longer Hasumoto.
At this point, Kujiro steps up. She is Takeda! Begone, Hatsumoto scum!
He sheathes his sword, or fully sheathes his sword, where it had been out a couple of inches. We will meet again, Takeda, and I will make a widow of my sister. And he stalks off back into the darkness.
Damn. I think the scene's got to end there.
Yeah,
oh, man. That was intense. Okay.
It was a lot of fun.
Man, so what was your objective?
So my objective was to get my rival to speak out against me.
Aha. I think I did.
Yeah, I think so.
Damn.
And what was yours?
Well, I tried to juke you with the rival to break a promise earlier, but it was to get you to walk out of an important event, and I snagged it right at the end.
There you go.
Now, here's what I want to see. This is a rules question. Where is this? So you did achieve your objective, which means that you get normal dice, and you don't get hatred dice. You achieve your objective. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, then you win your dice and you don't get any hatred dice for that, even though I got more hatred or more normal dice. That was one of the questions I was unclear about. So that's that. And now it is the time we strived for peace, the fourth scene. And you get to set this one. So you can tell me all about it.
So I think that this is some time later, maybe another 10 years or so.
Oh, man.
And I think through the cruel act of disbanding his sister from the family, Nariyoshi, in a backhanded way, kind of earned the respect of his father before he passed.
Gross. His dad is gross.
And because he kind of redeemed himself somewhat in his father's eyes, his uncle came around. It took him some
Mhm.
time, but I think he finally came around and began to treat Nadayoshi as a fuller fledged member of the school again. But I think now Nadayoshi is, he might actually be a, oh wait, I forgot something. The feud started when you killed my father. So he can't have died from his illness.
Yeah, he's got to still be holding on somehow. And it
Yeah.
also means this is the scene.
Yeah, right? Well, I don't know that we're going to be able to strive for peace in the same scene that you killed
Yeah,
my father. Well, maybe.
maybe we'll have to see.
Maybe. Okay. Um, so I think that my father is an old enough man that that Nadayoshi essentially runs the school now. My uncle has passed. He was already older um, whenever we did many of the rest of these scenes. So I think he's passed since then. Nadayoshi essentially runs the school now, and his father is uh, decrepit and old. Perhaps
Hmm.
his illness took his ability to, completely walk or something to that nature, somehow kind of preventing him from fulfilling his duties.
Yeah.
But I think that the scene, at the time that we strived for peace, I think that Sakura is pregnant with your third child. And I think that the pregnancy has become complicated and her health is declining now. You are you may be concerned that she may not make it, and
Hmm.
the child may not make it either. So again, I don't think I'm supposed to take actions for your character, but
Hmm.
I I'm thinking maybe that the scene is either you coming for help, um, in the way of medicine or funds or you know um, a knowledgeable person to help, um,
Uh-huh.
or you've sent word, maybe. I'm good with either version of that.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I think it would make sense that I would come for help.
All right, one more time.
I think it would make sense that I come for help. And I, yeah. So go ahead. I'm good to go.
Okay, so yeah, I've got my objective chosen, um,
I have mine as well.
and okay, so I think it's like late summer, and it's
Hmm.
becoming evening time, but it's not quite evening time yet. But it's deceptively dark because it's raining, and it's raining hard. The kind of weather where nobody goes out in it unless they absolutely have to.
Hmm.
The streets are just complete and total channels of mud, um, and visibility is incredibly low, despite the fact that there's still some color to the sky. Um, and I think Nadayoshi is standing out on the porch, kind of watching the rain. Um, there's a lot of gray kind of shot through his his beard and his hair. Um, Scars on his face and the exposed bits of his hands and things that you can see as he's kind of got his arms crossed across his chest. But whatever it is that's going through his mind, is something that we're not clear on, as he just kind of stares out through the rain.
Cool. So as he's staring, maybe one of the students comes up to him and says, Master, there is a visitor for you.
He kind of raises an eyebrow, and it takes a moment for him to fully register what has been said. Visitor? In weather like this?
Yes, he's not alone.
You failed to give a name, or did you fail to get one?
He said his name was not welcome in this house.
At that point, I think there's a rock and kind of drops into Narayoshi's stomach.
Yeah.
You know, kind of ripples out. But he does his best to not let on to this student. He just nods. Where are they?
I can take you to them, sir. They are waiting in the entry hall.
Keep them there. I will be there in a moment. Make them wait.
Yes, sir. So he shuffles off.
And Ariyoshi kind of goes and does something. But as the student kind of comes back to where Kujiro is, he comes in and says, "Forgive me, but my master has bade me to have you wait here." He kind of bows partially.
Kujiro is standing there, and his arms are crossed, and he's got one hand with his pipe, and he just blows the smoke in the student's face. And he says, "Fine." And he looks down. There's a boy standing next to him, a young boy.
And the student kind of stands there in this kind of pregnant silence for a second. He's not sure if he should offer comfort or not. But he also thinks that maybe it's rude to not. And eventually he kind of decides, being somewhat young and naive,
Mm-hmm.
would you like some
As soon
tea?
as he opens his mouth, Kujiro says, "Go away."
He just bows and, thankful to be rid of the situation, kind of just bows and exits the room.
Sounds good.
And I think an inconsiderate amount of time passes, I think,
Okay.
before
Sounds good.
finally Narayoshi comes in to the room, kind of slides
Okay.
the door open, steps in, and kind of slides it closed.
Kujiro looks at him from a distance, and at this point, he's gone bald. You know, he's only got the top knot that he holds at the back, and he looks at Nariyoshi, and he looks down at the boy next to him, and Nariyoshi notices that this boy is younger than 10. This is not. It's just not possible that this is the first child, and Kujiro is looking down at the little boy, and the little boy looks up at him. Says, "Jiro has Sakura's eyes." And then he looks up at you.
Narayoshi, now that he's been addressed, crosses the distance between and stops not at Kujiro, but at this boy, and begins kind of walking almost around him, kind of as if inspecting him, from the distance, his arms still folded across his chest. He still hasn't said anything.
After the silence drags on for sufficiently long, Kujiro says, "And he has his uncle's sword arm."
Nariyoshi kind of stifles the instinct to chuckle, to kind of accept the flattery that may have been commonplace when he and Kujiro were better friends. He says, "It has been a number of time, a long time, since I have seen you, Takeda."
Hatsumoto, we trained together under the tutelage of your uncle. He was a hard man, but he was better than your father.
Careful, Takeda.
And then he looks back down at Jiro. And he says, "This boy has never known an uncle. But he has his uncle's sword arm."
Have you come to ask if your son can train here at the Hatsumoto Dojo?
No. I know better than to ask of that from my one-time friend. No. I come here to ask that the master of Hatsumoto Dojo would consent to train the son of Sakura, who was once Hatsumoto.
He kind of stops and he kind of looks at you for the first time and he says, "Is that not the same thing?"
Kujiro says, "He is of your blood, even if he does not have your family name in all its loftiness." And he says, "I have taught the boy what I could, but he needs a school with other students. He needs to be strong for the sake of his mother."
Nadayoshi kind of has gone back to inspecting the boy, and when you say this, he kind of looks up at you, kind of with a question across his face, but one that he doesn't voice. He kind of reins in the emotion that kind of threatened to escape. You can tell, you can see now, the passage of time has made Nadayoshi a little more like his uncle. He's a little more laconic than he once was. You know, it's not quite as easy to smile as Nadayoshi may have once been. And he goes back to inspecting Yuro, and he kind of comes around to the front of where this boy is and looks at him, kind of squares off with him a little, and says, "You know how to wield a blade?"
The little boy looks pugnacious, right, but nervous too, and he just screws up his face and
Have you killed a man?
he looks at his dad, but his dad is just staring at you. And the little boy looks back and
Have you ever drawn blood?
um, the little boy screws up his courage again, and he says, uh, "With time and training, I will."
And Narayoshi kind of laughs. He says, I do not know if Sakura has ever told you, but we once had a brother. He was about his age before he passed. He looks a lot like him, though his voice is a little higher.
um, Kujiro looks down at his son and he says, he hopes to have his own brother soon. But we do not know what will happen.
This is not the offspring that I expected to see at your side, Takeda. When last I saw you, Sakura spoke of a girl. She's at
Sakura
home with her
knew,
mother?
yes, she must care for her. Sakura will give birth in 3 moons' time, if she makes it that long.
And again, you kind of see that flash, that the kind of pang of raw emotion kind of play out beneath Narayoshi's face. And he opens his mouth as if to say something and then very quickly snaps it shut. And kind of works his jaw back and forth, almost as if maybe gnawing on the inside of his lip. I am sorry to hear of your wife's health troubles. Perhaps I can train your son.
Will you train the son of your sister? Or will you train the son of my wife?
He thinks for a long moment. He's kind of gone back to staring at the boy. And he says, we shall see if Hatsumoto blood does actually flow in his veins first.
At this point, a voice rings out behind you as the door slides open. There is no Hatsumoto blood in the veins of a bastard! And your father is carried out into the hall by some people on, he's on like a sedan chair. And they carry him in and set him down. And he looks at Kujiro and he says, "What brings a dishonored cur to my door? What gives him the boldness to think he can enter this place and leave it alive?" And the little boy looks to Nariyoshi, and there is absolute fear and uncertainty in his eyes.
And the boy would actually find, though he may not see it, he may actually find more than just a slight reflection of his own response in Nariyoshi's eyes
Ugh.
at the presence of this man. Nariyoshi, who has kind of bowed his head and kind of stepped back to kind of open the conversation to his father. It becomes readily apparent that Nariyoshi may run the school, but that he's probably not as much in charge as he lets on in public.
Yeah. He's not the real master.
Right. It's Nariyoshi is still paying for that night of killing Goro, as well as the loss of his sister. He has been kind of cursory. The blame has kind of settled on Nariyoshi for some of his sister's actions
Yeah,
because
and
his
he's never
sister's
been
not
given
been
his
here.
due.
Right.
I like it. So do you want to take control of your father now? So that I'm not talking to myself.
Sure, absolutely.
Sounds good. Yeah, so I guess after you step back, Kujiro looks at the Lord Takeda and he says, I do not expect you to honor my blood, but this boy is full with half of your blood. And even if you will only consent to treat him as a half person, I would hope you continue to love the boy.
Just as one does not drink spoiled wine, one does not recognize spoiled blood.
No.
The moment you, Takeda, mixed with that of my daughter, she is no longer Hatsumoto. Her blood is spoiled.
Oh. Kujiro grinds his teeth and he says, it is people like you, the lords and the rulers, who have doomed my family to this life. And the little boy's sniffling at this point. And Kujiro says, because of your disdain, here in your comfortable halls, because of your disdain, I have scrounged for everything in my life and in the life of the woman I love and of our children together. And even now, when you see the low condition of people of your own blood, and his eyes well up at this point, still you have only disdain? Insolent, old man, you are worthy of nothing. You are not worthy of honor. You are not worthy of respect. And then, super quickly, faster than anyone is expecting, Kujiro takes 3 graceful steps forward. And before you know it, he's past your father and his sword is drawn out in front of him. And you realize in this moment that over the past 10 years, you have no idea what's happened to this guy. But it's clear that he doesn't own his own school. He doesn't have a house with servants, but he has worked every day of the past 10 years, and he is good at what he does. And then you hear the soft gurgling coming from your father's throat. and you see him slumped over in the sedan chair next to you. And I feel like that's where the scene has to end.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I like it.
Okay, cool.
So objectives. What you got?
Mine was to try and get you to admire something about me. And I don't know that you
Oh,
did.
yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know.
I thought
I don't recall anything.
there were a couple of times where I was like, oh, he's right on the edge, but I don't know how to make him say those words. And so, yeah, I don't think I got it.
Okay.
What was yours?
Well, obviously, like I set mine up as get your rival to ask you for help, but
Ah,
now I feel kind of bad because I like the scene was very loaded in that direction.
yeah. But no, I mean, I think it's appropriate. I don't mind taking on 4 hatred dice either.
Oh, well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get 4 dice, and I get 4 hatred dice.
Yeah, I realized like I had chosen the objective and then set it aside and then went to describing the scene. And then I finished describing the scene and I went back to check my objective to see which one I had picked. And I was like, oh, I just like I pretty much just made it happen.
That's no
So
problem. So let's see here. The fifth scene. The fifth scene. Now this scene plays out differently. Uh, this scene starts with a repeating of the declarations we made at the beginning of this thing, alternating back and forth, just like we did before. So it was a time of boiling dissent.
we stand on the edge of a shallow pool.
I remember when you were closer than my brother.
This feud started when you killed my father.
My name is Takeda Kujiro. I am the one who has shouldered the burden of your sins, and I cannot allow your actions to go unchallenged.
My name is Hatsumoto Narayoshi. I am a dishonored son, and I cannot allow your actions to go unchallenged.
So, I'm going to set the scene as happening minutes after this scene, or the previous one, right? And uh, the rain is still coming down, right? Like you said, it's not a downpour, but it's not the type of rain you really want to get stuck out in. And there is a courtyard at the school that has this path weaving through it and a little moon bridge. And the moon bridge is right at the mouth of this pool that has a natural waterfall that bubbles into it. It's got some lily pads across the surface. And the water is just totally obscured by the falling of the rain. What would you add to this scene?
The school has emptied out. The students are ringing this courtyard. Their eyes and their attention glued to this duel. And the lanterns have been lit, even though it's approaching the middle of the night. They've been lit anyways, just so that these students don't miss anything. You know, the students went around and lit the lanterns themselves instead of the servants of the house doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's, they've lit the lanterns themselves, like on the porches, but they've also lit these stone lanterns that are actually kind of scattered about the garden, the courtyard. So there's like these stone braziers that are covered, but they're burning with like this kind of fire that's defying the amount of rain that's coming down.
Cool. All right. So we each have objectives for this scene. This is our final round to pick objectives. And I know what mine is.
I think I have mine as well.
Cool. All right. So this is where we are. We stand in the rain. Your father is minutes dead. And I'm looking at you. And I call out, I only did what you should have done many years ago.
My honor has prevented any such actions. My honor has remained intact. Unlike you, Ronan, your footfalls are not worthy to cross this ground. I will sanctify this school with your blood.
Okay, so I will say also, we repeat our declarations one more time. Whenever we feel this scene has come to a natural end, we just, one of us, I guess I would be the one that starts off the thing, and then we would do that. So, you're telling me that I can't walk across the ground, and I'm going to say, I walked across the ground of this entire province, leading my son and your nephew to this place, seeking the help of your sister, seeking help for your sister, who will die if she does not have medical attention. I did that because I love her, and I love our child. I love all our children, because I used to love you, and I used to know what you held dear, and I don't see it anymore.
I once had a sister, just as I once had a brother, a man who did not look that dissimilar from the man that now stands across this courtyard from me now.
We still
Both
live.
are dead to me.
Oh.
You had a chance. I opened my heart to you once again. And then you do this.
Your heart would never have closed if not for the sin of pride. Yes, pride. You thought it was more important to side with an unloving father, to side with a bitter old man. You thought it was better to side with him than to side with your innocent sister. And because of that, for 10 years, she has lived in a hovel, the best I can provide for her. For 10 years, I have raised this blade, and I have lowered it. 400 times, I have killed men. 400. And for that, the thanks I receive is a hovel and sick children. When I could have stood beside you, when your sister could have stood beside you, when your nephews and nieces could have stood beside you. But because of the sin of pride, You chose your father. And now, when I have taken revenge upon your relations, for their sake, against the man who did this to them, you still side with the sin of pride.
I took the side of family. I took the side of tradition. I would not expect a member of the family of the Takedas to understand the importance of family. What is a name if it is not worth standing beside?
Kujiro spits on the ground. And he takes a moment and he says, You claim to love family. Hold on. My fiance got home. She says hi. Anyway. Okay, so you say you believe in family, and yet, because of a name, you would disdain 4 of your family members. You don't believe in family. Admit it. You only believe in loyalty. You only believe in blind loyalty. Family is nothing to you.
I believe in Hatsumoro. And the students at that point erupt in cheers all around the courtyard.
Okay. Hatsumoto. The trappings of wealth and privilege. That is all it stands for.
No.
Because it does not stand for blood, and it does not stand for family. You believe in tradition. You believe in prestige, but you do not believe in family.
It takes a simple mind, Takeda, to boil it down to only the things that you can understand. Tradition, honor. This school, this house, it is family. Family is more than just blood. Family is loyalty. And the moment that you and Sakura prove yourselves to be disloyal, to take only your own interests at heart, when you turned your back on this school, on me, that was the moment that neither one of you would ever be Hatsumoto ever again. And you proved it tonight.
Well then, it is a time of boiling dissent.
The edge. We stand upon the edge of a shallow pool.
I remember when you were closer than my brother.
This feud started when you killed my father.
My name is Takeda Kujiro. I am the one who shouldered the burden of your sins, and I cannot allow your actions to go unchallenged.
My name is Hatsumoro Nariyoshi. I am a dishonored son, and I cannot allow your actions to go unchallenged.
All right, so that's the end of the scene. Now, um, my objective was to get your rival to renounce something they once believed in, and I don't think I accomplished that.
Nor do I feel like I accomplished my objective of taking something important away from my rival.
Ah, okay, yeah, we were both pretty intractable, I think. So in that case, both of us get one hatred die.
Oh, it's just one. It's not worth what you're. Oh, it's only if
Yeah,
you. It's only if
if
they
both of
got
us get it wrong.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. If both of us get it wrong, then it's just the one
gotcha.
thing.
Okay.
So we score the scene like normal. We prepare for the final duel. We count up our dice and our hatred. So I have, let's see here, six. I have 9 dice, and I have 5 hatred dice.
I have 10 dice and 3 hatred dice.
Okay.
I
Um.
would like to recommend that
Uh huh.
before we actually get to the final duel, that maybe we take a small break.
Yeah,
Go to the
that works for
bathroom, get a
me.
drink. You can properly say hello to
Absolutely.
your fiance.
That's an excellent idea. All right, that's what we'll plan to do. So everybody, meet back here in what do you say, 5, 6 minutes?
Yeah, that should be good.
Cool. All right. See you soon, everyone. So I just wanted to say thanks again for anybody who is tuning in tonight. It looks like we've had 2 or 3 people in the audience at various points. I'm really curious to know what you think about this game. I have known about it since I backed it on Kickstarter, and this is my first chance getting to play it. And it's really my first time kind of familiarizing myself with the rules, too. Um, but it's pretty cool. It's much more of a story game than I usually play, but I like the narrative freedom that gives me. So I'm curious to know your thoughts about it too. Let me know in the chat if you're feeling talkative.
I am returned.
Okay, so it is the final moments of reflections. Yeah, so let's see here. What we need to do, these two samurai warriors, Kujiro and Narayoshi, are going to square off against each other and prepare for the battle by reflecting back on everything that they've been through in their lives together. And what we are going to do is roll dice to symbolize the one strike duel that happens. So, Jeremy, you said you had 10 dice, and I have 9.
I do, yes.
And then I have 5 hatred dice, and you have 3.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So I am going to use my hatred dice, which basically will give me one chance to reroll. But it has a chance to wipe out some of my highest numbered dice on my regular roll. So would you be interested in doing the same? Do you want to learn a little more about it? What do you think?
Yeah, if you could just kind of explain how that kind of thing would work.
The way the dice mechanic in this game works, you have a pool of dice that you've gathered throughout the game, and you roll all of them together, and then you look for the highest number that you rolled, right? So let's say you rolled 3 4s or something. You're going to count all 3 of those 4s if those are the highest die that you have on the table. And then you're going to compare that with my roll. Roll my dice and look for my highest 2. If I rolled 2 4s and that's the best I got, then you won because 4s are a tie, but you have more of them than I do. But if I roll,
the value is what you're looking for.
Yeah, the value, and then you want to know the quantity of that value too. Okay. But you're always looking for the highest value because just 1 6 will beat any. It'll beat any number of 5s. It would beat 6 5s. You know. Okay. The quantity doesn't matter. The quantity is secondary. First, you figure out which side has the higher value total, right? The highest die rolled. And then the secondary thing is how many of that did they roll if it comes down to it.
That makes sense.
And so once that's been rolled, you can choose to roll your hatred dice. And your hatred dice will be added together with your standard dice roll to give you the final result, right? So if I roll 1 4 and then I roll my hatred dice and I get 3 more 4s, then that's 4 4s that I've rolled, right?
Okay.
But if you harness hatred, you discard any normal dice that are higher than your hatred dice. So if the highest thing I roll on my hatred dice is a 2, I wipe out all of my dice that are 3 or above. And so there's a real risk for me of lowering my overall score.
Okay. So one more time, if you toss your hatred dice, if you go ahead and use those,
yeah,
anything that is higher than your highest hatred die is discarded?
Correct.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so you want to make sure you roll high with your hatred dice.
Sure.
Not that you actually have a choice. They're dice. Unless you're using them cheating dice.
Well, I've got 1, 2 additional d6s for my hatred dice. I just need uno mas. There's got to be one
Okay.
around this gaming place somewhere.
You can't actually see this on my camera, but I'm using purple dice for my normal dice and these ugly maroon ones for my hatred dice.
Oh, that's what I'll do. I'll just get some more. Okay, so yeah, I've got these kind of silver and coppery kind of dice as my actual dice. And then my hatred dice, I'm going to pull 3. Yeah, these are decidedly a different color. So 1, 2, and so for my hatred dice, I've got these kind of jade or sickly green and then 1 blue.
Cool. All right, so then the first thing we do is we roll our actual dice because we do the hatred die or the hatred roll separately, right? So let's go ahead and roll. Oh shoot! Okay.
Dice I rolled at once in a long time.
I know.
Oh, all right.
So the best I got 1 6, but I got 2 5s, so I'm going with that. 2 5s is the best I got.
And I ended up with 2 6s.
Oh
I'm
no!
gonna stick with
Okay.
the 2 6s.
Oh man. Okay, but I also have 5 hatred dice that I have to roll, and so
You have to roll, or that you can.
that I have to roll. Yeah, I made the decision earlier that I was going to roll them.
Oh, okay.
So I have 1 6, and you have 2 6s. And now I'm going to roll my hatred dice and see what I can do. There's 1 more 6, so that's 2 6s to 2 6s. Oh man, what does this mean? In the event of both players rolling the same amount of the highest number, the result is a tie, and both samurai lose.
Oh man.
Yeah, so we kill each other.
Okay.
After the rolls have been announced, the samurai that won the duel will describe their sword strike and the emotion driving it. This description to take into account their choice of hatred. For a samurai to let go of their hatred, the player should describe the tranquil state their strike and the acceptance of the moment. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so we know what's going on here. So yeah, we both won, technically. We just both lost, too. So describe your sword strike and the emotion that goes into it.
So I think that there was a kind of decided, slow and deliberate closing of the distance as Nadayoshi and Kujiro kind of circled each other. And I'm going to go a little gonzo. I think that, we actually see a shot from above, and we actually see that where they get to the point where they're really engaged in circling one another is actually a yin yang made of gravel
Nice.
in the middle of this courtyard as the rain's kind of pounding down. And that moment happens. There's a flash of lightning, and all of the students kind of jump with the lightning and the thunder, but neither one of us flinch. And in that moment, Nadayoshi charges forward. And I didn't roll my hatred dice, so I'm going to say that though he projected a lot of hatred and anger at all of this, he was very sorry that the circumstances played out this way, that it came down to this. He may have even been relieved that Kujiro has killed his father, but he can't show that outwardly.
Mm.
Again, propriety matters too much.
Yeah. So he's just dispassionately focused on the task.
No, I think it's man, it's not entirely dispassionate. I think he is actually aiming to kill Kujiro just to bring an end to the suffering of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I got.
So we're circling. The lightning strikes. Nariyoshi charges at Kujiro. Kujiro has been waiting for this moment. He's been waiting for this moment since their very first duel at the school those many years ago. And this is the moment where he could be the one to defend and react. And he's finally ready for it. And he wishes the circumstances were otherwise. But he keeps getting backed into a corner. His whole life, he's been backed into a corner. And he's had to cut his way out. And he's got to do the same thing here. But Nariyoshi is too fast and manages to get right through Kujiro's defenses. And it's still not so fast that Kujiro can't turn his blade and slash Nariyoshi, probably right across the throat. And then, of course, the two of them stumble apart, and there's a moment where the thunder booms overhead and lights them up, and they're both looking down, holding their swords in one hand. And then Kujiro's katana falls to the ground.
And almost in the very same instant, Nariyoshi drops to his knees. Of course, his injured knee first, the leg that has still given him trouble all these years later. And he's there for a moment, and we kind of see him reach up and pull his hands away, and it's almost completely desaturated, kind of in this moonlight. There's only kind of the vaguest flicker of orange from these lanterns kind of on the edges of his hands, but the red is like brilliantly crimson, like on his hands. And he says, "It's just done." And then he just kind of, his chin just slumps forward on his chest, and he slumps down onto his haunches and stops moving.
Kujiro looks over at the students, and he locks eyes with the same student who let him in earlier, right? And he says, "Train the boy." And then he falls over too. And at this point, once the victor has been determined, there is only one thing left to do. In the event that both samurai are killed, both players will rip their character sheets in two and exchange them. So,
well, I think it'll be a little difficult to exchange them, but I also think that as we pan back out, we actually see that where both of us fell are in the dots of the opposite sides of the yin yang.
It's absolutely true. Oh man, I love it.
And there's just like a line of red that kind of connects them.
Damn, that's awesome.
All right,
you ready?
Yep. 1, 2, 3.
Now, this moment is the end of the game. No more words are said, no epilogue spoken. The game was a moment in time for two players that has now come to an end. They should quietly lament on what has transpired in the lives of these samurai and let those reflections live on in the players' memories. So we're going to end it right there. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Anybody who watches this afterward, thank you for checking us out. And now, go quietly lament what happened in the lives of these two samurai. Until next time, we'll see you later.